Hello and welcome to Commsverse. This session is closing the compliance gap for Microsoft Teams with presenters Steve Blackmore and Gerry Durning from Geomant and Verint Verba. Over to you guys.
Thanks, Randy. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the last session of the last day of Commsverse. At a live event, I'd be expecting some people to leave early to catch trains. Hopefully this won't happen today. So session 340, closing the collaboration compliance gap for Microsoft Teams. My name's Steve Blackmore and I'm a business development manager with Geomant. I'm pleased to have Gerry Durning, Director of Product Management from Verint, with me here today. Geomant are proud of their long track record of providing innovative solutions to meet the challenges of contact centres, including customer interaction and call recording. We have a close association with both Microsoft and Verint spanning many years, and are excited as we launch our Microsoft Teams recording service, a fully managed cloud-hosted offering to our partners and customers. Azure hosting costs can be higher than anticipated, and a managed service reduces the financial risk. Deployment is rapid. You can have the service operational in a few days and benefit from the latest technology whilst maximising ROI. I'd now like to hand over to Gerry, who will take you through the rest of the presentation, including a demonstration of the technology.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, so what we're going to dig into today is a collaboration recording, so compliance recording. And one of the things before we start to look at that, let's start to examine just a little bit high level of why that's a topic to discuss today, and hopefully of something that's of interest to you. So kicking off with the actual statistics, as you can see on screen, and something that we're all living and breathing. It's all part of our daily lives and things that we're passionate about, Microsoft Teams. So the adoption and the growth of Microsoft Teams has been phenomenal. We all know that. The increase in users over the past years, the increase in modalities that people use, the extensive ways that people collaborate has grown exponentially. And with that exponential growth, with that large growth and adoption and rollout of Teams, organizations need to consider compliance. So with increased adoption, there's increased scope on compliance. Organizations should be asking themselves questions on, these new interactions, working practices from home with COVID, the introduction of voice, video, IM across Teams. What does that mean from a compliance scope and a compliance point of view? We're going to look at that in a little bit of detail, and then we're going to dig into some of the actual some of the solution that we offer in terms of compliance recording, and look at that in more detail. So what we're looking at today relates to compliance recording. There's been lots of interesting sessions this week on native out-of-the-box features within Office 365, things like information barriers and policies. What we're looking at today is an add-on feature, a feature that we offer to do with recording. So it's always on recording. So we're going to look at that in a little bit more detail. And before we look at that in detail, again, just more to position this, it's, why should you be interested in this? Why is it important to you? So, really getting back to the slide before, compliance itself, compliance is everywhere. So in regulated industries, financial services, insurance, utilities, healthcare, it's really important. In these industries, there are requirements for organizations to record for a multitude of reasons. So, there's legislation that says you have to record. It's regulated sales calls, regulated complaints, other forms of communication. Interactions need to be recorded. But over and above that, there's also wider reasons to record. So yes, there are the regulations, and we'll see them. We've got lots of experience helping customers across financial services, utilities, healthcare. In addition to that, companies record for other reasons. So driven by contact center, and again, there's been lots of great sessions on contact center this week. So for complaints, dispute resolution, customer protection, a liability and protection of the organization, for ethical compliance, and for the good old, the ones that you would normally hear at the start of a contact center call for coaching and monitoring. So there's lots and lots of reasons to record calls, and that's where we're here to help. So that's multi-industry, regulatory reasons and wider reasons to record. So when we start to look at recording, we'll dive into more detail on what we mean by recording. One thing I would like to get across when we talk through recording is the difference between convenience recording and compliance recording. So convenience recording is a term that Microsoft use and we use. It's essentially the ellipsis in the big red button when you're in a Teams call or a Teams meeting, where you've optionally, it's an option whether you want to record or not. Compliance recording and regulatory recording are scenarios where you have to record. So you have to record because the FSA or some other governing body or regulator says so, or you want to record for those contact center reasons, be it dispute and complaint management or coaching and monitoring. But there's a need there to record, store, analyze, and keep those calls. So what we're looking at today is compliance recording. It's not the convenience recording that you have available within Teams. So in terms of compliance recording, Verint as a company, you may have known the product that I'm about to show you previously as Verba. We've been working with Microsoft as part of Verba and now Verint for the past 10 years. So this is a short history lesson before we start to look at the technology and the solution. So we were the first to market with a link recording, Skype for Business recording, and in terms of our engineering and co-engineering partnership with Microsoft, we've been working with Microsoft on the Teams recording for the past year or so now. So that went through design phases, building in parallel when the Teams platform was developing the new calling APIs that were released last month. And further to that, the technology adoption program with customers, getting feedback, refining the solution with Microsoft, and we're now live with lots of customers, and we're now going through the certification program. So there's a rich history there. There's a lot that's happened in terms of our engineering partnership with Microsoft and also with customers as part of TAP. And we're also the only, the leader in terms of UC recording on Skype. So previously we've got around 300 Skype customers. We're helping customers migrate from Skype to Teams and keep recording going. And we're very much driven by partners. But we've got lots of referenceability from capturing UC conversations across lots of different modalities. And we are keeping that going with Microsoft Teams. In terms of the solution in Microsoft Teams, I've covered off the collaboration with Microsoft. So the other point here is it's really what do we mean by recording all Teams communication modes? So from a compliant recording point of view, either the regulations or the ethical compliance or the company's internal policies will mandate that you have to record certain conversations. So our solution can record all Teams communication modes. So that would be all voice-enabled endpoints that you can via the new Teams calling API. So that could be PCs, laptops, desktops, mobile clients, Teams-enabled devices. Again, you'll have seen lots of those devices over the past week. So anything that's got a Teams-enabled endpoint, we'll be able to record. We can record PSTN in and out scenarios depending on whether you've got, contact center enabled, calling plans, and other options from a communication point of view to enable those external calls. Again, they can be recorded. So all aspects of voice, video, desktop screen share, and we'll also cover instant message later on in the presentation. So all Teams communication modes can be recorded, and they all hit our unified compliance application. So this is the only time I'm going to talk about other technologies. If the organization wants to record Teams, but they also want to record other UC or PBXs or turrets or mobiles, the solution can record all of these different capture inputs and then manage the data. So manage the life cycle of the data from a regulatory point of view. So making sure that it's secure, encrypted, archived for the correct retention period, compliance features like legal hold, replay approval, analytics features on analyzing the calls, speech transcription, cases. There's lots and lots within the application. Capture is just one part of it. So a unified compliance application. And finally, so this is the last product generic kind of product pitch slide, as it were, the integration strategy. So our application is really easy to it's really flexible for us to comply and integrate within the organization's architecture. So We believe that your data is your data. So if the data needs to be archived somewhere else, if the data needs to be copied somewhere else for analytics, the wider integration strategy, everything's API based, and we can help you move the data around the ecosystem. But equally, we're going to touch on different integration strategies and the solution that we're offering with Geomant on different topologies based on Azure and with hybrid cloud on-prem deployments as well. So that integration strategy we'll touch upon, but it's very much your data is your data, and we'll help you get the most out of that data asset once we start to record the Teams conversations. So moving on to the solution itself, we're going to start off quite high level. So we'll start off high level with a functional flow of how the recording solution works. I'm then going to actually show you a quick demo. The demo is also available as part of the booth. So Jim, myself, and Steve will be there, both at the breakout afterwards, and also there's the booth where we can dive into more details on a demonstration. But essentially, the flow of recording from the Teams platform to the Verint recording bot is as follows. So as a prerequisite, Teams itself has new calling APIs that were made generally available in May. And as part of that release, there's also the ability within Teams to set up regulated users and recording policies. So if the assumptions there, if the regulated user has been set up, if you've defined, for example, Gerry as a regulated user, I'm a mortgage advisor, or I'm someone who deals with regulated complaints, or there's another scenario, maybe a contact center scenario where you want to record calls that I take, you would define me within that recording policy as a regulated user. So if that's been set up, when I join a meeting, and the meeting concept here from a Teams point of view, it's a conferencing platform. So that could be if I were to call Steve, if Steve were to call me, if we were to join a meeting, an all hands, a group meeting, a diarised event. So anything that I initiate, or anything that when I receive an invite, or anything that I join, that meeting concept, when the regulated user joins, the policy check in the background fires. And assuming that I'm a regulated user, what will happen is the Teams platform will automatically invite the recording bot, and it'll also play or display an announcement, depending on how I join. So that's whether I join on voice, or if I join on one of the clients. So the recording bot's job at that point. So let's jump to step 3. Gerry, the regulated user, has joined. The policy check's fired, and the recording bot has been invited. So I've been invited. The recording bot in the background, its job is to capture everything that me as a regulated user says, hears, sees if we're using video and screen share, or shares again if I'm sharing my video or sharing my screen. So everything that regulated user does, the Verint recording bot will capture, and then we'll archive and store in line either with the regulation policies or with your internal compliance policies. And then we do all of the extra value adds on, as I'd said before, security, encryption, managing the lifecycle of that data, application layers for case management and analytics, and all of the other things you'd expect within the application suite. So that's the high level flow. What I'm going to do now is show you a demo of that. So if you give me a second, I'm going to take a call here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to drag over, hopefully you can still see this. I'm going to drag over it's a different Teams client. So on this Teams client, I'm just about to phone my mobile. So I'm just about to answer. Okay, so we'll let the call connect. We'll probably hear an echo. And then I'm going to put video on. So this will be a bit close up, apologies. Give you a wave. And then I'm going to hang up. Okay, and now we're going to go to the demo environment. So what I'm going to do is give you a quick navigation of the interface. But first and foremost, you can see here that with the timestamps, we've just captured this call. It was a very short call. The participants, myself, it was a federated in call. So we're capturing all of the different metadata from the call event. We're going to see the playback in a second. I've got some other examples here earlier where I'd made voice calls just to do some testing. And then I've got other examples where there's screen share calls. This is one of my demo colleagues who was testing earlier screen share. So we've captured the calls. I'll do a 2-second navigation around the application. This is our search interface. So if you are contact center, you record lots of calls. If you're a financial services organization and you need to manage complaint resolution, or you need to manage understanding if sales have been compliant, we have all the search filters you'd expect in terms of date ranges, numbers and extensions if they're mapped, people. Labels are a mechanism to categorize calls. I'll show you labeling engine later. Cases are ways to basically investigations. If there's a fraud or there's some non-compliant activity, it would typically be managed within a case. And then within the metadata, it's all the different metadata we get from the Teams platform. To, from, users, directions. We do things like analytics on voice quality. So anything that comes as part of the handshake with the Teams platform is available to be searched upon. And we also have additional search filters. So as I'd mentioned before, it's not just Teams we can capture. So all the different other UC platforms, all the different trading turrets and mobile providers, you can have one interface to manage all the calls and search for them. And lastly, here in terms of search, for speech transcription, if you're a compliance officer and you've been asked to find a call in May where Gerry's mentioned the word Comsverse, that might be an easier way to, or that would be an easier way to find it than rather than going and listening to all the calls that I placed in May. So a very quick tour around the application. Compliance workflows are for things like legal hold and replay approval. Communication policies is a feature we have for Skype that we're developing for Teams, which is like information barriers. Lots of dashboards and reports. And for things like labeling, if you have someone under investigation, so just quickly, I'll show you a labeling rule. We can hold all of Gerry's interactions. So let's assume that I am under investigation. The regulator wants to hold my interactions. We can apply a label based on a rule. So it's any call that I make, and we could also say any call that I make when I've used the word Comsverse, and we can, or Microsoft. So we can write a rule where calls will be categorized with labels, and also calls can be held or they can be placed into investigations. So I'll quickly go back to the actual call that we recorded. So back here, we recorded the video call there's the voice segment of the call. Here's the video segment of the call. I'll show you playback quickly. So I'm going to transcode this. And again, I've not set this up to happen automatically. The reason I've done that is because we've got lots of different options in terms of compression and formats, depending on how you want to play it back and how you want to optimize on the storage. So normally that would be set up automatically. Well, I'll let that, I just left it there so that you can see that there's lots of different options for compression and storage. So as that's transcoding, other things to note is we'll have the metadata that's captured, and we'll also have the wave bar here to navigate through the call. So we'll quickly watch that call so you can see the demo in action. Oh, you should see that appear there. Demo glitch. Okay, maybe go back to that later. So that's a quick overview of the product. What I'm going to do is go back to the slides. So I'm going to go back through the slides now, and we're going to take a more in-depth look of the actual application. Oh, it wasn't a glitch. We just finished the demo. There we go. So that was the call that we just recorded. Okay, so we can do a more in-depth demo in this, the breakout afterwards, and also we're available at the booth to dive into more details of demos across screen share, video, and normal calls. So going back to the flow, we've covered off the functional flow. We've had the demo. Let's dive into a little bit more technical detail to see how it actually works under the hood. So there are some for the voice, video, and screen share recording. The way that we connect through to Microsoft Teams to record the calls is based on the new calling APIs that Microsoft released in May. So at this point in time, they're enabled by the E5 and the E3 licenses. For E3, you'll also need call plan. What we do in the background is we've developed a bot-based integration. So there's been lots of sessions this week on recording bots and extension capabilities within Teams. So we've used the extension patterns recommended with Microsoft, worked with Microsoft engineering, worked with customers in Microsoft as part of the TAP program, and we're currently going through the certification program with Microsoft. So that bot-based integration basically connects to the Graph API and the local media SDK in the background. From the functional flow, I'd covered it off. When Teams will auto-invite the bot when the recorded user joins a call or meeting. The two items here, we'll support 2N recording. So you'll be asked for this if it's, failover, business continuity type requirements that'll come probably from the more enterprise customers or the regulated customers, but we support 2N recording. Strict mode and non-strict mode is, again, it's a setting within Microsoft. So this relates again to business continuity, where many financial institutions will say if the recording infrastructure isn't there for whatever reason, the regulated user shouldn't be able to join a call or start a call. So if strict mode's enabled, if I'm a regulated user and we go back to that flow of a meeting started or I join a meeting or someone calls me, I wouldn't be able to join if the recording infrastructure wasn't there and strict mode was enabled. And we've seen as part of the demo that we've got access to the voice, video, screen and application streams. The next part of the actual flow is the instant message capture. So for Teams, this will be available within the platform. So it's the Teams APIs, the webhook APIs that we integrate to are going to be available, we understand, in the next month or so. But basically we access the DLP webhook APIs, and we are working towards being able to capture peer-to-peer group chats and also capture all of the richer media and the kind of social attachments that you get within the Teams platform. So cards, mentions, GIFs, memes, stickers, and all of the attachments, but also capturing, crucially, where messages are posted. So again, from a compliance and regulatory point of view, understanding, was it a peer-to-peer instant message conversation, or did I post that in a channel, and who actually had access to that message when it was in the channel, because that's important from a compliance point of view. So that is the APIs that we work against will be GA soon, but also from our point of view, we're planning on that being available in our 9.6 release, which will be on the 14th of August. Again, diving into a little bit more detail. So we've covered off the functional flow. We've covered off the APIs that we work against in the background from a Teams platform point of view. Now addressing some of the kind of bigger operational questions on recording infrastructure and how to set things up. So again, Jim and Steve and the guys will be available afterwards and also in the booth to dive into more detail. But there's some pretty big questions that customers typically ask us, and things that customers need help with. And a lot of that's what Geomant have set up, both they can help from a consulting point of view, but can also help from the BuzzEasy contact center platform and the recording solution that works with it. So the big questions that we typically get asked are whether the customer's ready to go to fully in the cloud, and we'll look at deployment architectures and topologies in a second, or whether they want to remain on premise. And we can help answer that question at a high level in terms of how the infrastructure works. The recording bot, so the recording bot that I showed in the first flow diagram, that runs within a VM on Azure, and that has to be in the cloud. The rest of the infrastructure from a recording point of view can either be fully hosted in Azure, or it can be on-premise in a hybrid mode, if you will. So that big question of on-premise or cloud, and all of the questions that surround that. So a lot of the conversations we're having with customers at the moment is understanding what what does Teams calling and recording mean from a cloud point of view. So information security requirements, that the governance requirements that the organization may ask on public certificates, IP addresses, NATs, ports, things that, you know, understanding how they enable for the cloud is a big question, but also understanding how someone like Geomant can help them with the hosting and the cloud services and the Azure expertise around that. Other items that are really important that customers ask is around user provisioning. So, you know, I've set up all these users within Azure AD and AD or other systems. You know, how do I quickly provision users? How do I satisfy adds, leaves, changers and churn within the contact center? So again, from a solution point of view, we've got lots to offer there in terms of Azure AD Sync and other ways to minimize the amount of user administration and maximize how much we inherit and we take in from Azure AD. Oversight and BI. So again, there's lots and lots of contact center BI and information that you can get within the BuzzEasy platform. In addition to that, we'll provide specific management information around the things that happen within recordings. So retention policies, archiving policies, who's been exporting because it represents risk, what's encrypted, what's transcribed. So lots and lots of alerts and management information and oversight in terms of managing your recording estate. And finally, the scalability question. So again, going back to our history and legacy, we've when it comes to UC recording, we've got references of customers within the tens of thousands. So that scale question, you know, we've got lots of experience and we can help there. So let's dig into some of those architectures in a bit more detail. So I'm going to show you two. So the first one is everything deployed on Azure. So this is a component diagram that follows the same flow as you would have seen those 1, 2, 3, 4 steps on the high level business process or functional diagram. So what happens here? Step 1, someone calls in PSTN in or out, depending on what you have enabled, or they join as a Teams user, you know, a mobile, PC, laptop, tablet, Teams device, Teams enabled device. They join a meeting, start a call, or someone calls them. When this happens, the Teams platform invites the VFC recording bot. So that's the Teams bot there. And the recording server can also be hosted in Azure. And thereafter, all of the different nodes and connections can be deployed completely on Azure and can reuse all of the different native Azure functionality around storage, SQL services, AD. The app server that I showed you logging into with this user here is the compliance officer. So when the compliance officer goes in and searches for calls or writes rules for labeling on calls or you know, initiates or works with the compliance workflows like legal hold and replay approval, this is what they're accessing here. And again, everything can run end to end in Azure, but the call flow itself, this is the call starting here, the bot's invited, the calls are being recorded by the recording server, and then they're being stored within Azure infrastructure. The next topology I'm going to show you is hybrid. So we have customers who aren't ready to jump directly into everything being in Azure. This flow here is similar. So again, we've got either calls coming in or out, or we've got internal users collaborating and communicating with the teams in the modern workspace. So call has started or joined the meeting. The recording bot itself must run within Azure. We're joining out to the recording server. So the recording server can be co-hosted in Azure, or it can be deployed on-premise. And then the rest of the actual recording architecture here is based essentially where the customer wants it to be. So typically, if they already have an investment on-premise on a particular archive technology or some other reason not to be fully on Azure in the cloud, these elements of the recording infrastructure can be hosted where the customer needs them to be, but the recording bot must be on Azure. Okay, and last but not least, we can also record. We can record against SBCs. for Teams direct routing. So that's a architecture and topology that we've supported for a while. That option is also there. Many customers also ask for this either as an alternative or something to complement the new calling APIs that have been in the previous methods of recording I described that are there for Teams. I'm going to hand you back to Steve just to kind of recap. Hopefully that's been of interest. So Steve, over to you.
Thank you, Gerry, for a very interesting and informative presentation. We've looked at why you need compliance recording for Teams and how unified and automated compliance technology can help you. We've seen how the recorded data can be analysed and managed to get real value. And many of you will be familiar with the architecture for recording Skype for Business, and now hopefully you'll have a better understanding of the components required to record Microsoft Teams. And if you don't want to go down that road on your own, then Geomant and Verint are more than happy to help you. Gerry and I'll be happy to take any questions you may have. And I'd like to thank you all for attending our session, and thank you for visiting Comsverse. And a great big thank you to Randy, Mark and the rest of the Comsverse team for putting together such a great conference. It's been a pleasure sharing our Microsoft Teams recording solution with you. We hope you've enjoyed the presentation and found it interesting. And if you'd like to engage with us and have further questions, please join us in the post-session breakout. Normally at this time, I'd say come and have a drink with us and have a safe trip home. Maybe next year, hopefully.
Thank you very much. We've got one question in the Q&A. It's been published. How is data retention set up for recordings?
Good question. So we've got lots of the short answer is we've got lots of configuration screens and features for that. The slightly longer answer is we've got two different ways to do it. We've either got user-based retention policies or we've got policy-based retention policies. So we can either set it up where you define that there is a kind of global policy. So if you will, I don't know, this line's taking loans calls versus mortgage calls, in which case, it's 5 years or 7 years or 3 years or however you want to slice and dice. It's all within a business administration screen as an option. The other one is we can also set user-based retention policies where you'd say Gerry is a regulated mortgage advisor and it's against me. I have to, all my calls have to be, captured for X years or so we've got two different ways to do it is the short answer, but it's all done within a few UI wizards.
Okay, that was all the questions. Just going to post a link to the post sessions breakout session and one to our survey. Okay, if there's no more questions, we can end here and you can join the team in their post-session breakout, goteams.fans/BRK340.
Thanks, Randy.
Thanks, Randy.
Okay, thanks a lot.